Hello everybody, my name is Farmer Phil, and in today's video, we'll start off anyways, we're here with Father Phil at the Ferguson TVO20. He's getting ready for his Fergie of the Lakes run, which is next weekend, just making sure everything is going to actually stay running for how many kilometres?
I think it's over 90, 96 or 97.
It's a long it's a long way to go on a Ferguson 20. So he spent the day in here, miserable wet day, me and Liv were dosing calves, cleaning out sheds. And the pair of lads were getting geared up. We're supposed to be going up pit silage tomorrow, so they were putting tractors and trailers together. His father Phil has a lot of work done, so you're redoing the electrics.
Well, I done the distributor, I showed you that. So
yeah, the distributor, and you're getting the dynamo that will charge, so you don't need a spare battery on the road.
It won't stay going for very long if it doesn't have charge.
Yeah.
So and you have a bad spark.
Just for those of you who, because I have to presume that everyone watching doesn't know why, because this is a petrol TVO, it requires a spark plug, and so that would drain the battery if the battery isn't being charged. So that's why Father Phil needs to get his dynamo working, and a dynamo is a magnetic generator, which is the old school. It's not an alternator, and it works on negative positive.
Yeah,
the
earth is on the positive.
Positive, yeah.
So she's a positive earth.
That's it, positive earth. I couldn't think of the right word.
New dynamo, new regulator.
Yeah.
New wiring now.
Yeah.
Original light.
Yeah.
Took me over an hour to get that screw open. really tested me.
That's the charging light on the dash.
Yeah, I'll just show you now. New ignition switch.
Hang on, turn around.
That's new light.
Well, not new light, your old light.
The original light.
The original light. 70 years old next year.
Yeah.
Careful now, you'll blow it, flicking it on and off.
A little bit. An issue with that ignition switch, but anyway, we'll cross that bridge.
So at the minute, as you may see, the head is off the engine here.
The cover, the rocker cover.
Rocker cover is off the engine.
Overhead cam.
Yeah.
Would have been back 70 years ago. That was a new thing. Because up to that, you had the flat top side valve engine that has overhead cam with the valves on the top, and we have a little bit of a knocking noise when she's running. And that rocker has far too much play in it, so we just have to reset the tappets. And that's what it should be like. That's what it should be like.
Yeah.
But it's so I can hear it tip 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 when it's running, and I shouldn't hear that. Running quite well. I have it starting to drive in and going well. Now I have to turn around and do the brakes.
Yeah.
So there's a full new set of shoes behind you on the ground.
This one here. Yeah. The brake shoes. So, and on that note, I'd like to thank today's sponsor today's video for all your workshop and tractor bits and bobs.
New or old,
John Connolly's. Head over to the website there, check them out. Father Phil got most of the bits. Everything, well, the wiring loom you got off Kenny.
I got the wiring loom off a different man. He didn't have it. But
yeah.
Everything else was.
But brakes and all the other bits and bobs were got off Connolly.
All off Connolly.
So if you're looking for bits new or old, check out johnconnolly.com and have a look there. So you have to wire up your parking lights.
I was going to wire up the parking lights that they'll work.
Yeah.
That's it. Not going to bother with the headlights. The headlights are a challenge in their own right.
They're OG headlights.
Yes, they are very much so. Everything's good. The run is for the Jack and Jill Foundation.
Yeah.
So it's a very worthy cause.
Yeah, and it's also looking like it's going to be wet Saturday.
He's laughing at me all week here.
He's got himself a great big poncho. If he got 10 poles on the cab now, he'd probably make a tent out, a cab out of the poncho he has for him. It's forecasting 14 mil of rain. So I'd nearly go out
me every time I see him.
I'd nearly just go out to spectate just to see him going along in his poncho. But anyways,
60 to 70 20s.
Yeah, or Ferguson's, there's 35s as well.
The Ferguson 35s as well, but
it's all Ferguson.
Mostly 20s.
Yeah, so if anyone is there or wants to support the runner, that Liv will stick something on the board there, and you can catch them in driving around Lochderg, starting in Portumna, heading for Port Rush.
We're heading down through around Killaloo, back up to Pikes Port Rush, staying overnight there.
And then driving back down to...
You'll have to just check that out and get it right.
Yeah, Liv will just stick it up there. For anyone who wants to catch them.
Me and
Liv will be keeping the fort anyways. We're going to be planting pumpkins and sorting out bits and bobs for the farm shop while he's away. But that's more or less the gist of what's been done. So we'll try and catch up with him when he's doing the breaks. as I said, while Father Phil spent the day at this, me and Liv have been busy, so it's hard to spend.
I had an awful lot today. I had put a new, a new temperature gauge.
Yeah.
And this was covered up with a stud, and it was driven into it.
Yeah.
So I had to retap the aluminium housing. And anyone that's familiar with working on old tractors, aluminium is not the easiest thing.
Soft.
To it's very soft, but I got it done. I just didn't rush, and that was to get off.
Oh, the pulley for the dynamo.
The pulley, yeah. And you cannot get them. They cannot be got, so you must use your own sides.
And have you that charged?
I don't know yet.
Something you have to do.
This is
because the 35 needs it done because it's not charging. We put the whole new wiring loom and everything on it, but we never done the dynamo on it.
The regulator needed to be changed on it.
Right.
The new dynamo was put on, but there wasn't a regulator put on.
Right.
And it might be a problem with the regulator. This has got everything new, but there is something that has to be done to short out the dynamo or something just to get it.
To get the charge. It's to energize it to start it charging.
You only have to do it once.
Yeah. I suppose just for anyone who's watching who doesn't know what TVO stands for, back in the day, petrol was expensive, whereas still is, but petrol back in the day was expensive. So what was done for UK and Ireland and the UK
mostly Europe, I suppose, as well, was the vaporizing oil. It was TVO. Vaporizing oil.
So the tractor had a petrol tank and then a TVO tank.
Behind you, two tanks.
Don't
touch it and fall.
Okay. So I had two tanks. So you had a small tank which was for petrol, for which was starting your tractor on to get it warmed up. And then once it was warmed up, you switched over to your TVO, which was cheaper to run. And I went through this vaporizing unit here, which is basically just wrapped around the exhaust manifold, and that was to vaporize the oil so that it would spark.
Yeah, well, it turned
the oil into vapor.
TVO into gas.
Yeah, to vapor.
Vapor.
So that it would work with the spark plugs.
Your petrol goes in fluid.
Yeah.
Petrol goes in a fluid where we run this on kerosene now.
Kerosene is
straight kerosene.
You can't get TVO, the original TVO anymore.
1975, I think.
Yeah. So kerosene. Some people say kerosene, castor oil.
But that's more or less.
That's to get the smell.
To create the perfect TVO smell.
Yeah.
There is a recipe, but straight kerosene is correct.
Yeah.
Once it's warm.
Yeah.
And everything's working right.
Yeah.
That alcohol, new plugs, new coil, new condenser, new points, new rotor arm, everything we need to that new. All complements of Connacht's.
Yeah.
Everything we've got in Connacht's.
Anyways, that's more or less it. So we'll catch up with Father Phil when he's in the back of it. What always happens is Father Phil doesn't use the camera, but maybe not.
Yeah, you come in and
expertly, and I don't have time to spend here to watch him.
Every time I ask him to do something, he's gone to do something else.
Well, did you get these calves done? Because our worm count was quite high. We might do a bit on calves later in this video because we're.
Yeah, when those are Wednesday.
Huh?
It's going up Wednesday.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll do them tomorrow night. I'll have that open.
Yeah.
We'll be silage together up tomorrow.
But silage together tomorrow, possibly baling and mowing for baling the next day. Mm-hmm. So, and we tried to do a bit of reseeding there.
And I want to spray done.
Yeah, well, spraying is
very much priority.
Anyways, we'll catch up in a bit, but that is the TVO 20 as it stands now. Getting geared up. Huh? What? Can't hear you. Oh, it is the next day, and we are going at calves. When I say Liv is feeding the calves in the yard, I'm going to feed the calves that are out. And here we have the last lock of calves that's in the shed. There's only 7, I think, still on milk. There's 30-ish there that are ready to go. We put the wires up yesterday, so we'll be moving them out later. But to get to the point that I was making earlier in the video, we have a problem-ish problem. There's always something. So the problem is historic here. We have a worm burden problem and an ivermectin or a mectin-resistant worm problem. We have dung sampled and dosed all the calves this year, and our dung samples were coming back. The bridge field, which we'll be feeding, was 180. The guys down the bottoms were at 280 or 260. So that was very high. Around 200 when you dose. The ones that were down the bottoms were only a week off this paddock, which is the paddock at the back of the shed that the calves, while they're on milk, can come out here. We found that's been the best way of training, getting calves off milk onto grass without calves going backwards. But it's led to a problem now, that this field has an incredibly high worm burden. And this field There's a bit of dirt there, but there's good grass on it. But that is incredibly rocky bit of ground with just absolute boulders hanging off it in spots. The only way we can get rid of the worm burden out here, well, there's two options. One was from, I can't remember, is it worm or fluke, but if we put a heap of ducks on it, if we can break the life cycle of the worm, and with ducks or geese that eat the slugs, that would break the life cycle. The other and the more proven method is to reseed that field. And I said to Father Phil, we have to reseed it. He's like, no, but I think we're just going to go do it anyways. And I'll have to do it with the 35 and the wee Ferguson disc harrow, because you would not put the Lemkin through it, because it just there's too many big boulders. At least with the 35 and the disc harrow, you could kind of weave in and out and around them and try and freshen that to get it, because the calves have a high worm burden before they leave here, so they're really not getting a chance of getting going without the worms. And the problem with the egg count with worms is that when we say the calves that are on the bridge had a worm count of 180, that means there is mature lungworms in their lungs that are laying eggs and falling out, so the harm is being done and there's more immature ones coming on inside of them. You cannot test for immature inside them, and it's when they're mature, they're doing harm, and they've been doing harm for a while before that. The other problem is, because we're mectin resistant, our list of options for dosing is getting thin, and we're going with a drench for this year, so a down the neck dose. But the problem with that is it kills the worms the day it is given. The next day they're back picking them up. So we could dose them as we done the last 2 days, but the problem is now that then 2 days later they're going to start picking up worms again. So by 12 days time, especially in areas of a high worm burden, we could be back to square one. If you're wondering what the sprinkles were, I was putting on the meal for the calves. So one is minerals, and then one is microbes and gut conditioner and that for the calves. So that's just sprinkled on top of the meal. Minerals is the cheapest way of getting minerals into them, because bolusing is expensive, while it might be more, every calf has got it. Otherwise just cheaper. These are the guys down the bottom. So these guys, egg count was at 260 or 280. So they're dust now 3 days. There was a nice bit of coughing, and that's why it was kind of getting me a bit nervous, so we went and got them tested. But coughing is more or less stopped now. They're in pretty good order. So yeah. Boy, it's going to be a problem. With your mectins and them, they give you a longer period of protection when they work. So if you dose, you might get 10 days, 16 days, whatever it is, of actual coverage, where if they're picking up worms, then worms are killed. But with the drenches, the day you give it is the day what's killed, and then after that, they're back picking up. Our biggest problem is it's the same paddocks, same rotations every year. That's given us this high worm burden in our paddocks. That's the reason why we reseeded the shrubbery this year. It's why we done the bridge field, and the bridge field is at 180, which we'll be going to there with living with pupa fence, and their worm burden is lower because of the reseeded pasture compared to these guys. So that's why we want to try and get more reseeding done. Now, just to elaborate on the point I said about 100 ducks, now I may be wrong, but from what I can remember from my ag science in school, the life cycle of a fluke, not a worm now, but for a fluke, I think it's the same with worm, but I could be wrong. So the parasite matures in the animal's stomach, lays its eggs come out through the animal's dung. Slugs and snails and mollusks pick up the eggs hatch inside the mollusk, turn to larvae, they grow a little bit, and then they excrete out of the mollusks onto the grass, where the cattle eat the grass, then the larvae go back inside the animal, and then they mature into full mature parasites, and then that's the cycle. And the reason why ducks would reduce it is if you have ducks out there, the ducks are going to eat all the snails, all the slugs, all the mollusks, which stops that life cycle of the parasite, fluke. I think it's the same for worms. That'd be a more holistic way of approaching it. Something we could probably do if we really wanted to. We probably could pull it off. It'd be difficult, but I think we could. But I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments, am I right or am I wrong on the life cycle of a worm, but it's definitely for a fluke. The other alternative is reseeding, because reseeding just freshens the whole pasture, reduces the worm burden, and it gives you a better chance. And the reason why the calves suffer so much from the worm burden, and our issue is the lung worm, which builds up in their lungs, and then it causes pneumonia, causes host pneumonia, and that's what does the harm. But the reason calves are so susceptible to it, or dairy calves, is because the calves have no natural immunity built up to the worms on our farm, because they weren't born here, the mothers weren't from here. Whereas if you had sucklers, the suckler cow passes on her immunity, or her white blood cell, her natural immunity to whatever's on the farm, whether it be parasites, bacteria, viruses, whatever, onto her calf, so her calf has a better fighting chance. And that's why the calves suffer so bad from worms. Whereas the older stock, which are just in the background there, which are our last year's calves, they don't suffer from worms as bad, because over the space of the first year on the farm, they start to build up a natural immunity where the body is able to fight the parasites themselves. We keep going, we'll go back up to Liv, we pick her up, and we'll go do the other calves, and we'll move them onto their fresh paddock. Come on, get over it. Right, drive. While they slowly cross the wire there, we've put up another wire. So one of the things with down here, it's a 10-acre field. We can divide it into 5 2-acre splits, so it works really well. And one of the good practices to helping deal with a worm burden is to dose your calves, leave them 2 or 3 days, let them cough up all dead worms and stuff, and then move them. So we've been able to do that here ideally, and it's easy done on this, because as I said, with 5 2-acre paddocks, it's able to keep the cows running for most of the year. The first calves we looked at, we just couldn't, because there's too much grass where they are, not enough grass ahead of them to make it work while moving them. So these guys had a worm burden of 180. These were first out of the shed. Now there's 2 reasons for lower worm burden. One, this field has been reseeded, so it should have a naturally lower worm burden. Second thing is this field is multi-species sward, so you have plants in here, or herbal lay, that have antimelentic properties, which basically means they're like a natural wormer. So we have our chicory here, and I did see some plantain. There's plantain in here as well. There's plantain there. That's plantain, the broadleaf. So they provide antimelentic properties, which are natural wormers, which help reduce the worm burden in the calf. The only issue we have with the multi-species is, you can see we have plenty of buttercups, which reduce they're acidic, the cattle don't like them, and make for poor silage. And then there's also plenty of docks coming. So how long we'll be able to keep this as a multi-species grassland is going to be interesting. If we can keep mulching it, keep the seeds from going to head on the docks, we'll keep that under control. The buttercups, I don't know what more we can do for them. Just try and keep them out, try and make sure the ground doesn't get damaged too much. Anyways, we've put up a wire here, give them their next 2-acre split, and get the rest of them guys moved. But that's one of the reasons why these guys have a lower worm burden, reseeded lay, and the multi-species sward and antimelentic properties of the stuff that's in it. That's them guys. Not all moved, we thought they were.
Just grab the fence, lift over.
Yeah.
Quick.
Be quick. Me and quick doesn't go together in the same sentence. that's them back. Them on their next paddock, so that should do anywhere between a week to 2, depending on grass growth. Aiming for about 10 days, but depends on grass growth. Anyways, we'll have bulls and bullocks to move, so we'll pick it up with Father Phil in the shed. It is evening time, and as you can see, Father Phil has the back end spray on it. Not him to threaten, but he was blitzing through spraying today. He's hoping to get this round of spraying done, which I think is foliar application, so liquid application, micronutrients and stuff onto the barley and wheat. And he was going out with some wild oat spray. I can't just think if he's gone out with the T1 fungicides or not. I'm not that well versed in tillage, even though I did tillage in college, but I just don't really pay attention because it's, yeah. Anyways, so as you can see, Father Phil has it back on. He has it all looking good. He got his tappets sorted. The cousin come up and just redone the tappets for him because Father Phil doesn't have the feeler gauge for setting the tappets. So cousin has it set, so he come up and just done it for him to make sure it was right because he doesn't want any issues next weekend. The weekend is looking like it's going to be thunderstorms, so he'll probably get back into this Thursday, but that's not a whole lot of good for today's video. But he's getting there. So if you want to learn more about that run, we'll stick it in somewhere there. And I know part of this video is probably, we looked at the calves, how calves are going. How are the crops looking? Crops are yellow. Every crop is yellow. Every crop of barley is yellow. So much so, with one man telling us it was barley yellow dwarf virus, which I thought was only an issue for early sown spring crops, which ours wouldn't have been, and winter crops. So let me know in the comments what you think. And another man has told us it's potassium. So Father Phil has gone out, part of his liquid fertilizer he's putting on potassium as well to see will that solve the issue. But on that, it feels a bit weird that every crop, literally every corner, it's weird. Let me know how crops of barley around the country are looking. It's not looking very hectic at the minute. So it's not. Definitely not. So, and on that, let me know how are your own calves faring out. What are worm counts? What do you do to protect it? And any and all comments and questions you can leave into down below. We're ready now to go at silage tomorrow. I probably should have brought the camera with me. So after we finished up with the cattle, I went off mowing and then baling. And we have a pit to lift in the morning. And then we have 2 customers to bail for the evening. Hopefully get finished up around 6 or 7 o'clock. And we get field reseeded. So that's probably going to be Sunday's video. Because the rest of the week after that is looking very wet. And it probably won't be that much else other than tricking. So anyways, look, we're going to leave it at that for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, please like and subscribe to the channel. Videos every Wednesday and Sunday. Doesn't feel right, so it doesn't. Just doesn't feel right. Anyways, look, let me know in the comments to any of the questions, and we'll try and get back to you. That's it from me. Good luck.